we're in the brink of a generational change of leadership in American politics. And a lot of what's driving Mondavi's support is a desire by young people to not only break things now because it hasn't worked, but to allow a new generation of leadership in America that feels like for the last 20 years or so, it's been stifled. And, it's one thing if you have a generation that refuses to step aside and things are going well. But we have now, for a lot of people in our country, feel like that the older generation, the greatest generation, my generation, baby boomers, have been around. Not only have we been around too long, but we've done a lousy job of leading the government in the country.
So there's been lots of coverage in the last 48 hours about how tight everything is getting, sometimes from people who want that to be true. Are you fairly confident that we're about to see a Mamdani mayoralty in New York?
Well, I guess I'm fairly confident. I mean, I don't really know. I don't think anybody knows. I will say that the turnout has been exceptionally high so far. Almost 750,000 people have voted early, which is 4 or 5 times the number of people who voted early 4 years ago. And generally, Mondami has had much more enthusiastic supporters and the kinds of people who you would think are motivated to vote. And if the early vote numbers are indicative of that, then he's probably in pretty good position to win.
And how, on the scale of leftydom, Doug, how far left would you put Mamdani? I mean, Trump's called him a communist. Lots of talk about him being a socialist from his supporters. Where does he stand on the spectrum in your view in terms of political leadership?
Well, in U.S. politics, I think he would define the left on the spectrum. I mean, I can't think of anyone who's run for a major office who has a reasonably good chance of winning is as far left as he is.
And what does that mean that he might win, in your view? Does that mean that, in terms of, I mean, New York has always been a left-wing city in recent times. It's never voted for Trump, even though he lives there. What do we infer from the rise of Mamdani in New York?
Well, I mean, I think it's one of the things that people in America are trying to figure out is how much what happens in New York is a reflection of what's going on in America, and how much is New York unique to New York. And I think that for the most part, New York is unique to New York, and I don't think it's transferable necessarily to the rest of the country. But I do think that if he were to win and the Republicans are trying to make the Democratic Party defined by having a socialist mayor of New York, that's not a positive, obviously, for the Democrats.
How come? Explain that further. Why is that not positive? Because you think in order to win nationally, the Democrats have to pitch themselves closer to the center.
Yeah, I mean, capitalism has been under attack in America. And if you look at the polling compared to, say, 20, 25 years ago, people are less supportive of capitalism now than they have been in the past, because I think a lot of people feel like capitalism hasn't really served the masses. Nevertheless, having said that, I think around 15 or 16% of the people in America have a positive view of socialism. So I don't think you can get elected to office in the United States running on a socialist platform.
And what about the charges of communism? And historically, a very dangerous charge to be faced with in America, being accused of communism. How close to? I mean, Trump says these things anyway, but how fair is a charge? I mean, how extreme? What sort of policies would Mamdani have that would be approaching the concept of communism?
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, he has at least put forth some policies that are clearly socialist in terms of not only obviously really sticking it tax-wise to the wealthy, but also providing a number of services for free, including transportation and food and other proposals that are really an anathema to the foundation of capitalism.
And will he be able to afford to pay for it? I mean, the question that's often asked in these, socialists always run out of other people's money is the great Thatcherite line.
I don't think right now he's even pretending to represent the fact that he knows how he's going to pay for all this stuff, other than taxing the rich. I don't think anybody who looks at this objectively thinks that the math adds up.
And yet he's going to win. So what do we conclude from that, Doug? I mean, surely credibility is important. The ability to live up to your promises, to pay for what you're promising. Is that not the heart of any election, including election of a big city mayor?
Well, I think there are actually two forces that are actually larger than that, and one is, believe it or not, there are people who voted for Donald Trump in New York City who voted for Donald Trump for president who are going to vote for Mondavi, and that's not as counterintuitive as you might think because they're basically supporting candidates who are prepared to blow up stuff, to break stuff, to change what's been going on. So I think there are two strands that are fueling his rise right now. One is that people feel like the system as it's been currently set up, and a guy like Cuomo, who epitomizes that as a second generation politician and a former governor. And I think that for a lot of people, they're fed up with the system that hasn't worked for them. And so Madavi, like Trump, for many people, they speak to them. The other thing is, which I think is really driving a lot of American politics now, is that we're on the brink, and you're certainly going to see it in 2028, following the two oldest presidents in history. We're in the brink of a generational change of leadership in American politics, and a lot of what's driving Mondavi's support is a desire by young people to not only break things now because it hasn't worked, but to allow a new generation of leadership in America that feels like for the last 20 years or so, it's been stifled. And, it's one thing if you have a generation that refuses to step aside and things are going well. But we have now, for a lot of people in our country, feel like that the older generation, the greatest generation, my generation, baby boomers, have been around. Not only have we been around too long, but we've done a lousy job of leading the government in the country.
So do the Democrats need a national Mandani? Do they need a iconoclastic, young, not frightened to make promises they can't keep figure?
Well, I worked for President Clinton 20, 25 years ago. I'm from a different wing of the party. I would say probably a center left person, not nearly as far to the left. But I think there are some there, and I don't agree with a lot of Mondavi's politics. But I think there are some lessons that Democrats can learn from his candidacy. The first is the authenticity that he is as a candidate, and secondly, his understanding of new and modern media. And thirdly, while I don't agree with his solutions, I think he's raising a lot of the right questions. The issue of affordability is key. In our country, we have a very disproportionate division. We have two Americas now. We have an America of around 20-30% that is living great, is making a lot of money, never been more successful. But for around 50-60% of America, they're struggling. And I think that a lot of what Mondavi's been focusing on his campaign and the issues that he's raising in terms of affordability and giving people a chance to get ahead in life with a system that's fair. I agree with that, even though I don't agree with a lot of his policies. So I think there are some lessons here for Democrats to learn, but it's certainly not, in my view at least, his socialist policies.
I guess the risk here is that we're talking about an insurgent party in this country, Reform, which are on the right, and they have just backtracked on their promises to cut taxes to an incredible extent. And so they're trying to be fiscally responsible. It's an interesting question, actually, in the modern world of social media and tribalism. Is being fiscally responsible actually accounting for all of your promises, making the sums add up? Is that now an electoral disadvantage in a world where people just want to see things kicked down and aren't going to punish you for not making the sums work?
Well, I've been doing politics for a long time. And what I often will say is I've been around so long, I remember when Republicans were fiscally responsible. And now neither party is fiscally responsible. And there's never been a bigger spender and a bigger increase of the deficit in America than Donald Trump and the Republican Party. So there is currently no constituency in America, in American politics, for a candidate to run on fiscal responsibility. And by the way, I just add one more thing. There's a level of cynicism in America now about politics and their elected officials that no one expects politicians to basically do what they say they're going to do. They just They've just priced it in.
But this is terrifying, Doug. Is this not terrifying? That ultimately no one believes in anybody, no one's telling the truth. No one believes in fiscal responsibility. They just want to have someone tell them everything that's gone before was wrong, and I'm finding a new way to make it right. I mean, that's demagoguery, isn't it? I mean, we're living in the age of demagoguery and populism, and we just have to accept it.
We are living in the age of Trump. Since he rode down that escalator in 2015 and announced his presidency, for the last 10 years, he's been the single dominant figure in American politics. History will look back at the Biden 4 years as a speed bump during the age of Trump.
And we're all still dealing with the consequences of that. Fascinating stuff as ever, Doug. Great to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.